بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Respected friends, in today's lesson we are going to speak about the conditions that necessitate wudu, and I would start off by saying, as according to what the scholars have mentioned, that لا يجب الوضوء إلا على الذي تجتمع فيه الشروط الآتية, that wudu is not binding except upon the one upon whom the following conditions are found or are met. Number one, al-bulugh, that a person must be baligh, must be mature in terms of Islamic law. And that obviously implies the opposite, that wudu is not binding upon a child, a minor in terms of the Sharia. Number two is al-aqlu, sanity, because wudu is not compulsory upon those who are severely mentally challenged. Number three is that of Islam, because wudu is not binding upon the non-Muslims, upon the kafir, the disbeliever. And number four, al-qudratu على استعمال الماء الذي يكفي لجميع الأعضاء. A person should have the ability of using water that will suffice for washing all of the limbs that are required to be washed in wudu. And فإن لم يقدر على استعمال الماء لم يجب الوضوء عليه. If a person does not have the ability of using water to wash what needs to be washed in wudu, as we've spoken about in our last lesson, we speak about washing the face, washing the arms, washing the feet, and making massage of the head. That comes a third in the sequence. If a person doesn't have the ability to perhaps wash their feet, maybe a person has a particular illness, they cannot wash their arms, whatever it may be, but if they don't have the ability of using water to wash those parts that are required, wudu will not be binding, it will not be necessary upon such an individual. Similarly, the scholars have mentioned that إذا كان قادرا على استعمال الماء ولكن لم يكن الماء كافيا لجميع الأعضاء لا يجب الوضوء عليه. Let's say a person has the ability to wash all the parts that need to be washed in wudu, but the water is not enough. The water is not sufficient. Then in that particular scenario too, wudu will not be binding and necessary upon such an individual. We will come to the remedy at a later stage. What does a person do in this particular scenario when either they don't have the ability to use water to make wudu, or there isn't sufficient water to make wudu with? And to wash those parts that are necessary, what does a person do? For now, I'll just tell you there is a solution called tayammum, and we'll discuss the details of tayammum at a later stage. The scholars then go on to say that wujudul hadath al asghar, when a person finds themselves in the state of minor ritual impurity, then they will need to perform wudu before performing salah, before touching the Quran. So wudu suffices to take a person out of the minor state of ritual impurity. If a person finds themselves in a major state of ritual impurity, for instance, a person, perhaps semen had left a person's body, or it was a lady that was menstruating, and so forth, then it puts a person into the state of major ritual impurity, and there's a separate purification process for that, which we call ghusl, like basically, if you want to call it a ritual bath. But for now, we're talking about those things that, or we speak about wudu, taking a person out of a minor ritual, a state of minor ritual impurity. So when a person goes toilet, passes urine, passes stool, person passes wind, maybe a person had a cut and was bleeding. These are things that puts a person into a state of minor ritual impurity, and wudu will be sufficient to cleanse themselves from this particular state. And wudu is meant for this. So if a person is already in wudu, then wudu is not then binding upon them. You can't remake a wudu. Either you're in a state of wudu or not. Why we say this, sometimes there's a confusion, because a person will say, okay, I am in a state of wudu, but I want to make another wudu on top of that. Yes, to renew your wudu, that is rewarding, but it's not necessary for you to make a new wudu. It is necessary to make wudu when you find yourself in a state of minor ritual impurity. Also, the scholars say that إن كان الوقت ضيقا, some say ضيقا, then يجب الوضوء. That if there is very little time, there is very little time left, as we have mentioned earlier, for you to perform your salah, the time is going. Then wudu becomes necessary upon you if you can manage, even if it's just covering the bare minimum, the basics of wudu. That is what it will be, and then you perform your salah. So you must have that sufficient time to perform the bare minimum wudu as well as the salah. Otherwise, if a person cannot do that, then they will have to make up for that salah if the time now goes. Some miscellaneous masail pertaining to wudu, the scholars have mentioned that it is not necessary when a person has a thick beard that they have to let the water reach the skin. Rather, just the mere washing of the outer part of the beard, that is sufficient. They don't have to get the water to touch the skin beneath the beard. That's when the beard is thick. But when the beard, the person has a very thin beard, thin strands of hair, and the water can easily reach the skin, then the water should reach the skin underneath the beard. It is also mentioned that if there is anything under the nails or on the nails perhaps that prevents water from reaching the skin, for example, wax, dough, or nail polish that's not permeable for ladies, then it will be necessary to remove that substance and then make wudu so that water can reach the skin. So, especially the nails and underneath the nails, that is important. Scholars also talk about if a person is wearing a tight ring, then it is necessary, obviously, to wash the hands and the forearms. So, to move the ring, to loosen it and let water go underneath there, because if a person's ring is so tight that they make wudu and they just wash over the ring and water doesn't go underneath the ring, touching the skin beneath the ring, then that wudu will be compromised. That wudu will not be valid. It will not be accepted. So these are few important miscellaneous masail that we should keep in mind. And inshallah, in our next lesson, we'll then go on to discuss the sunan of wudu, the ideal wudu as taught to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq, the correct guidance, and we ask Him to allow us to learn more of this beautiful deen. This has probably been brought to you by Muslim Online. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.